Oh, you son of a bitch. Oh, you suck. Oh.
The men in the back will say you need a splitting maul.
Yeah, he wouldn't be wrong.
A little mass, you know.
Need a heavier axe, gentlemen. What do you know? We got lots to talk about today. You know that?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, crisp fall day in the neighborhood. Haters will say our fire is fake.
You know, it's funny.
That it's just VFX and SFX because we're, as leaders in the industry, we can do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, call in our VFX guy to run the fire.
Oh, remind me to ask me when we're done with the pod about.
Okay, so we got to cut that.
Got an answer.
Okay.
Okay, now we start. Well, we just crunched. Oh, you can put it in there. Don't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you could beep it if you're editing it. I don't know.
Yeah,
how to do
I don't
that.
know.
Or just
put in the shotgun. Yeah.
Put in the shotgun.
Yes.
Love that. Oh, welcome back to the
Did we
pod,
tap?
ladies and gentlemen.
I
Boom.
don't know if we did.
Yeah, we just popped and got selfish. You always got to consider the other person when you're popping.
Yeah.
So fucking.
Yes. Yes. Welcome back to the pod. What's going on?
Oh man, let's see. Where do I begin?
Well, you were elk hunting this weekend.
I went elk hunting. I've gotten in the habit. About 6 months into this podcast, I do everything I can to not talk to Tim all the time. Yeah. So I always have something new to talk about when we're in. And this time around, Tim does not know how my elk hunting went.
No.
So some may not know this, but Josh likes long-range rifles. I think they're fucking awesome. I think they're a good time. I encourage everybody to give them a shot. They're a lot of fun. It's amazing how accurate things are today, especially if you pay for really good products. And I shot my first elk with a long-range rifle a couple years ago at like 820 yards, and it was like remarkably easy, but it was a really heavy 338 Lapua, and I hated carrying it around.
You mean like the physical weight?
The physical weight of it. It weighed so much. It was bonkers. I was like, I cannot carry this thing around hunting again.
More or less than 20 pounds.
Oh, less, barely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about as heavy as you could legally hunt with. And just carrying it around was brutal. So I had a goal after that year to build the lightest rifle I could possibly build that was still on a chassis platform, because I really like the chassis platform personally, which doesn't look like your traditional comb stock. It's got drops and adjustable cheek pieces and things like that.
Does it have the pistol grip?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really like a pistol grip a lot better personally.
I like it too, yeah.
There are some things that don't work well on chassis, I've learned, that would have been a little more handy, but I really like the chassis. And it took me over a year to compile all the parts and pieces to build the rifle. So last year when it rolled around to rifle, I was still using the other one and hating life because it's so heavy.
Was that just because of lead times?
Yeah, it took me over a year to get the action I ordered.
Mm-hmm.
So Defiance Action makes a titanium action.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the lightest thing I could find. It's got the most cuts out of it. But it took 14 months. Like I got back and ordered it right after that. I was like, I'm not carrying something this heavy around again. It's nuts. And I'd ordered it then, and it took 13 to 14 months to come in. Came in right after season last year. I was compiling parts then, and I have a MDT carbon chassis. I've got a Proof Research pre-fit carbon barrel.
Yeah.
Night Force NXS it's either 4 or 4.5 by 35. Really light, but major magnification options.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't know, or for reference, or for frame of reference, is you have a really good resource in Doug, who runs did you call him the manager of the online stuff?
Yeah, Doug's the, I call him manager period, but he's the manager of the online store, and he assists in the other department if he needs to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's a lifelong gun nut that was like doing long range rifle before it was a thing.
And he has access to a lot of other cohorts because he has a long range rifle range.
He has the nicest outdoor licensed rifle range in the state easily.
Mm-hmm.
He constantly has people renting it for private things from big groups because theirs in a nicer place.
Yeah.
And it was his pet project so Doug used to manage Car Toys install bay on the north side of Spokane way back when. And he's got a bad back. and eventually he couldn't get in a car anymore and do it. It was just too painful. And he had a workplace injury, and so they retrained him in a different field. And during that time, it was like go back to college, whatnot. He had a long period of time where he wasn't working or didn't have to work, and he built that range during his off time. So, nicest range I ever see. It's Rock Lake Rifle Range, by the way. Shout out to it. If you're within like 3 or 4 hours of this area, which is south of Cheney, you got to check it out. It is a member only thing, but you can come on Saturdays and check it out and see it. Because there's Doug's present on Saturdays, but the rest of it, there's nobody managing the range. So you get taught the range rules, you sign a waiver, and you can go out whenever you want during daylight hours after 9 a.m., if I remember right, or something like that. Unless they got to close it down for farming, because there's a lot of farming around it, and when his brother's working, because his brother runs the farm out there, they have to shut it down. But anyway, I finally got that gun built. I shot it 2 days before season. It was the first chance I had to actually run some rounds through it. And I was at my cousin's house. He lives close by. Well, not close by. He's a little ways away. But I was at his house shooting, and I got a call from him after I left, which is before our pod last time, that his daughter just shot a bull. So did our pod, ran over there, took care of that.
That go well?
Yeah.
You said that was a spike with character?
It was actually a rag. It wasn't an inaccurate thing. So it had a big drop, which was the character, but when you got up to it, it had like 3 or 4 points on the one side. The picture didn't show it. It just showed like a spike.
That's a perfect first bull.
Oh, yeah. It was phenomenal for her. And that wasn't a terrible pack. I'd say it was 500 yards, and only 100 yards of it was uphill. The rest of it was downhill. It was really easy. The 3 of us, including her, which she's a sophomore or freshman? Sophomore, I think. At Freeman on the trap team. We all handled it just fine in 2 trips, and it worked phenomenally. And then 2 days later was the opening of rifle, and my cousin and I developed a plan of what we were going to do. I was going to go this way. He was going to go that way. We'd eventually run into each other somewhere, 4 miles away from where we are. And he actually got a bull to talk to him, and I was trying to sneak around the back side of that bull in case it pushed away from him. And I got like 80% of the way there, and then I heard a gunshot, another gunshot, and just went right towards the gunshot because I knew it was him. He wasn't 200 yards away from me when he shot it. We started at opposite sides of the mountain, ended up right on top of each other. And then he shot that one. We quartered that thing out and hiked out, and were able to do it again with 3 people. It wasn't terrible, but
Was that a decent
the rest of the day. Yeah, that was a 6-point.
Really?
Yeah, a typical bull in that area. They don't get super
Like
big.
stocky? Got some mass, though?
Nah, it was probably a 4-year-old bull. It was decent size. Like, it was good. I got pictures. I'll show you. It was a decent bull. And dude, that guy, like, he's not on any social media or anything like that, so you won't find Justice Snyder anywhere. But that guy has killed an elk, if I remember right, every year for the last 37 years. Like, without fail, no matter what. And the last 3 years consecutively, the first day of the archery rifle season, the first morning, he killed his bull. 3 years in a row. Like, just...
That's great.
You give that guy a gun and they're dead. Won't matter. And to boot, the last 3 of them, no, one of them was a lot farther. One of them was a distance, but 2 of the last 3 were less than 20 yards away from him when he shot him. Like, he still hunted them like you would hunt archery. He's just carrying a gun because they're that time of year. He knows them. He knows them really well.
He's got a program.
He's got a program. So anyway, then I ended up hunting by myself a bunch. Because he actually got gout pretty bad, and on the second pack out, he was not doing well. And so I was like, look, like the next day and a half, you just chill. Don't. I know you'll do whatever you got to do, and I get that, and I appreciate that because you're hardcore and you're a man and all that, But it's like, I'll go figure it out. I'll have a plan. We'll talk about it before I go, and you'll know where I'm at. But don't do anything. Just rest. And I went out. Couldn't hear anything, couldn't see anything. A little bit of sign, not a lot in a different place.
How was the weather?
Weather got super hot on when I told him, hey, let's give it a break. And I actually didn't go hunting that evening or the next morning because it was so hot. But then it went really cold. I got snowed on at one point.
Nice.
The day I shot my bull, which I killed a spike, I actually got snowed on pretty good, like the hour before I shot him.
Spike with character?
He had some funky stuff around his
Just a
bases,
spike.
but little bit of character, but I just call him a spike.
Yeah.
And like I said, I hunt for meat. I don't care. Is it legal? Yep. Shoot it. Especially that time of year. Once you get past the archery season, I'm not going to be picky at all.
Oh, and you got like a 5-day window, right?
5, and I didn't hunt for. So for me, that's a total of 10 hunt possibilities, morning, evening.
Yes.
And I opted out of 2 of them. So I really only had 8. And this was, and then one of them I got bogarted because I was packing out. No.
Right.
So 3 of the 10 I lost. Right. So there's only 7 left. And so this was on the second to last day. We interrupt this podcast with our own little shameless plug. Head on over to podiumarcher.com. All those archery needs. $99 and up is free shipping. Use coupon code TIMC. Save yourself a little bit of money. We also have this little Jocko Go stuff. Little coupon code for that over on their websites, Josh and Tim. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow along. Leave us a review. It helps us more than you can know. And let's get back to the pod. I hunted in the morning, went back similar to where Justice killed his bull, but we'd heard from, he knows everybody in that area, that they ran into one and missed one lower than we were. So I went and worked the lower section trying to find or locate. Nothing would talk, nothing would respond. Came back and had the same plan to go back to the same place I went night before, but there's this little knob where we saw some cows a couple days prior that I was trying to see from a different angle, because where we spotted them from is too far to shoot a gun. So I worked over as far as I could go. I actually used my expedition to get to a tank trapped road. I used my e-bike to get all the way up to the top of the ridge before you pass into ground that you can't ride on anymore. Left it there and then hiked from there. It was a pretty neat little expedition. I did that a couple of times where I'd take this machine to here, take that machine to there, and then go hike from there miles.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat. It was fun. I thought it just felt like more of a, I don't know, experience, what have you. But went out as far as I can possibly go to see the other side. And every time I go around a point to try to catch the angle where you'd see this tip of this knob, I'd range it, see how far away it was. And I finally got to like the next one where I was looking on a map and going, okay, there you might be able to see it. There you might be able to see it. I got to that one and I ranged it and I'm like, that's too far to shoot. So I hoofed it all the way back to what I was trying to see. And I knew that there was only one more possibility of hunting this place in the evening, because it's really an evening spot. Meanwhile, my cousin that evening went out and said, I'm going to glass over in this thing and see if I can find a bull. And he sends me a freaking video of a 6-point bull 900 yards away from him, which is pushing it. You probably shouldn't shoot that far, but
you probably could have closed the distance. But
probably could have closed the distance a couple hundred yards and gotten a shot off. And I'm like, okay, well, I know where I'm going in the morning. Right. So my brain's like, I might come back to this place once, but I doubt it. Like if I go over there in the morning, I'm probably going back over there in the evening. So screw it. I'm going down to where we saw him, or to get as close to it as we can. And I followed it down all the way down to where I was maybe 300 yards from the bottom total, but I still couldn't get over the knob to see the other side of it. And I lost so much light. I was like, I have like 20 minutes and I'm not going to be able to have shooting light anymore. So at least I hiked my way back out to where I had a decent vantage point of the bottom on the one side and got back to there. And sure enough, there's a freaking bull standing in the bottom of it as soon as I came around to where I could see again. And then I'm looking around like, where the hell am I going to set up? Because it's like downhill like this. Like it's steep and there's foliage that's a foot tall to a foot and a half tall everywhere. So like try to find the most open spot that has the least amount of foliage, throw my bipod down, and I've got a Atlas bipod, I think is what it's called. It goes like this long, but it gets that small when it's folded up. Extend it all the way out, put it in as high as you can get it to get up high enough so I can see over the freaking grass or whatever some kind of weed. I wasn't really paying
How far
attention.
away was the bull when you first saw it?
300 yards. Yeah. And I get all set up. I reposition a little bit. Finally get on him. I was pretty sure he was a bull. It was getting dark. Pulled up my binos. It looked like he had spikes. Pull my gun out. A lot more magnification. Zoom in on him. Went, yep, it's a bull. Okay. Pull my phone out for the yardage. Check my data. Move my scope. Try to reposition. And it was really awkward. Like I'm extending my body up as high as I can, sitting on my ass. And the gun's down like that.
Because you're shooting way down.
I'm shooting way down, and I'm trying to look over stuff that's like a foot tall. It's like as high as, when I first got that bipod, I was like, I'm never going to use this thing fully extended. First time I've tried to use it on an animal, I extended it all the way and moved it in because it moves in and out. So you can really got a big swing of motion of where you can adjust to. Anyway, got it all situated. He's standing, quartering towards me, or even better, then that, and I'm like, all right, I put it right next to his shoulder blade and squeezed it off, and I heard boop. Like, all right, I hit him. I know I hit him. And somehow, what normally I really struggle to stay on the animal after I shoot, like reacquire
it's tough,
the animal.
yeah.
I reacquired him almost immediately. Like, holy crap. And I zoomed it back really quick as he was moving. And he's walking away from me. I'm like, God, I know I hit him. And I'm looking at him and I can't see any blood anywhere. So I'm like, well, he's still in range. So I zoom it back in. And he was 100% 180 away from me and put it right on his tail and shot again. Or boom. Like, okay. I hit him again. He fell over then. Like, all right, cool. I mean, but literally, I fired and jacked a shell so fast, it wasn't even funny. First time I didn't, like, I haven't shot a lot of stuff with a gun. I didn't even jack a shell after I fired the first one. I was just sitting there looking up like, oh my God, you need to put another bullet in here. But after I shot him the second time, literally, I fired and my hand went up and jacked a shell so fast, it wasn't even funny. Then I came back up and he's laying on the ground. And then a cow was, like, I look off in the corner of my scope and I can see a cow just standing there while I'm shooting at him, not even running away or nothing. And she walked over to him a little bit, and then I saw him lift his head up again. So I'm like, screw it, I'm shooting him again. I didn't need to shoot him again, and I understand that, but I'm not one for, if they're still moving, just shoot. I don't care. I'm just gonna get it done. And fortunately, falls down right there. I hike my way out of there, get back to my e-bike that's at the far end of the secondary property that you access through. Drive that down this nasty freaking steep son of a bitch when it's dark and there's grass that's 2 feet tall anywhere. I hit like 7 rocks. I'm like, oh God. Yeah. It was fun though. Like I said, I hadn't done that. It was exhilarating.
It was an adventure,
the first trip up, I was really nervous. I'm like, I don't know if this bike's strong enough to get up this hill because it's bad.
Right. Once you go down it, then you got to come back up it.
No, I go up to get there and come back down.
Okay.
But this is the second time I've gone in. Right, my first trip up there, I was nervous. I was like, oh my God, am I going to end up pushing this thing all the way up the hill for no reason? Because as soon as I get to the top of the hill, I got to walk anyway. And it was, like I said, it was really cool. And fortunately, I have a friend of mine that has rights to be on that property with a vehicle. So I called him, shout out to Forrest Rogers, and said, hey, remember this hypothetical situation I talked to you about the other day? It's not hypothetical. Can you come help me? If you can get me through these gates, I can drive my UTV right to him. Like literally right to him, because there's old logging roads all the way down. And he was standing on a logging road when I saw him. He fell right on the edge of the logging road. So yeah, Ford goes, okay, gets over there. He got back to the shop before I did. Everybody jumped in my Expedition, loaded up the stuff, and we drove all the way right to him.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I just gutted him out, threw him in the back, took him back to my cousin's house, hung him up, caped him out.
Nice. You don't get to hang up a whole elk very often.
Well, it's actually happened a lot because of where he lives and the road systems he has access to, because my cousin can go a few places most people can't. The number of whole elk that my cousin has been a part of getting out is double digits easy. So, and when we used to hunt at my buddy Greg's house, almost every elk we got out whole. Like we drug it to a skin and pull and hoisted it up in a skin and pull. And
that's wild.
It was great. Yeah. And ironically, the bull I shot at my property last year, I winched it into a trailer and drove it down to where I wanted to gut it out and hung it up. Actually, I didn't hang it up. I could have hung it up, but I opted just to take it right to my my buddy that's a taxidermist with the cape on. It was 0 degrees outside. It was like, I don't need to take the cape off of an animal. It's got 0 degrees outside.
Did your adrenaline get going on the shot at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like
pre-shot?
More than I would normally with a bow, because it's like something I hadn't done. Like I'm trying to remember, out of every elk I've killed, which I've killed since I stopped hunting at Greg's. I hunted with my cousin prior to hunting at Greg's, and I shot 2 elk with my cousin, but he was always the caller and I was the shooter. Hunted with Greg, and that was just like ground brines over water and whatnot, so that's kind of by yourself. In my property this last year where I shot my bull, that's a tower blind, over feed. So it's like, well, it's not really doing it by yourself. I mean, it is, but it isn't. This is the first elk I've ever killed where I was 100% by myself. Decided I was going to go into here. I think they're going to be here. We've spotted some from ways away.
Yeah.
Made my own plan and went out. I mean, we talked about what I was going to do, but I was by myself. And
yeah, it's a different feeling, right?
It is.
You think it's kind of spiritual?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Like it's just kind of you in the world. And like when I was coming back down to try to get down to that spot, the snow was like beating me in the face, like stinging me in the eyes because it was coming it was winding and at an angle there, and it was like freezing rain / snowish stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it was 30 degrees up there, I think, when I was up there. It was cold. So it was as the cold front was really coming in.
Yeah, it's
last week. So
it's a unique experience when you're on your own and it all comes together. I mean,
but yeah, and then I had 1 day left of season and tagged out, and I spent most of yesterday getting my meat to the butcher and prepping for videos because I got to film like 6 or 7 today and tomorrow before I leave for Texas on Friday.
Tejas.
Scrambling. Yeah.
Well, good job. Congrats.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
That's worth the tap.
A lot of fun, man. I can't recommend enough. Long range rifle is just a blast if you understand how it works and have the right equipment. Can't use cheap stuff though because the consistency is just not there. I mean, first time I shot that gun, I shot at 100, 200, like one shot at 100, no, 2 shots at 100 to re-zero it, 1 shot at 200, and then 15 shots in a row at 500 yards. Never missed a plate. Just ding, 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 ding. Never shot it before.
Yeah.
Like this, there's some really amazing equipment out there.
Okay, so let's talk about the shot really quick. It's got my curiosity going. Do you remember the angle downhill?
I didn't measure it.
Okay.
It was steep.
I remember one time I missed a bear high, and my downhill angle was like 35 degrees or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's my understanding on some rangefinders on some really steep stuff. It skews their what do you call it?
They struggle to accurately measure the angle compensator at longer distances.
Yeah, the formula. It skews the formula at extremely steep angles up and down. And this is maybe years past that was true. I don't know if that's still true. But squeezed off a really good shot on this bear. It was like 330 downhill, like 35 degrees, and I just shot right over his back. And the only thing I could think was, man, maybe the angle compensation was a little askew. I really don't feel like I missed that bear, but after we watched the footage, it was actually a pretty small bear, so there's probably a pretty small window. Mm-hmm. So maybe I was 8 inches high of the kill zone and it was missed. But yeah, I was just curious if you remember kind of the data from that shot.
So I can tell you the data difference between like 100 and 300 for me is almost nothing. Mm-hmm. Like I was 0.8 on my scope. I barely moved it. So if we're talking about angle compensation, you're not going to deduce 2/3 of your distance at that angle. So how far was your shot?
It was like 330 or something.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be that far off.
Yeah.
Because if my zero's 100, if you think about it from an archery standpoint of angle compensation, right?
Yeah.
You're never shaving more than, an extremely crazy is going to be like double digits of yardage at like 100, right? So 10%, is you're a lot. Right. So, but what's the difference between 10% of 100 to 300 yards if it's 0.8?
Right.
10% is 0.7. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change that much. At 1,000 yards, yeah, sure. Huge, a lot. But no, not like 300, 400. I mean, 0 to 500, it doesn't move. I think my turret change, which I'm shooting mils, not MOA, at 500 was like 2.5 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's not moving that much. It's really not. Now, once you get past that, it starts moving a lot, and that can take a big factor into it. But you're up close, 500 and in, I don't think you're shaving that much.
Yeah, mine's an MOAs. Just a little bit of curiosity.
Still, your drop from 100 to 300 isn't significant.
Yeah, I could look at my charts, but I would say like 300 would probably have been like 2.7 MOA. I think my zero was at 200 yards. So maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, this is all memory. Yeah. Doesn't matter that much.
If your zero's 200, it couldn't have been very far off at 300.
Yeah.
It's not even that possible.
Well,
can't blame that, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. Uh-oh. We got a man down. What did we lose?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, another elk down, freezer's full. Did you take a scale to the weight by chance of the amount of meat you got?
No, I took it to the butcher whole. So I won't know how much meat I have until I get it back.
Well, that'll be cool to hear.
And he had a freezer full of elk.
That'll be cool to hear how much meat comes off of that, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, a spike isn't that big, but it still seemed pretty good size. Yeah. And I did lose. I'm sure I lost a little because my secondary Texas heart shot about inch and a half to the right of the hole and right through the ham. And grenaded. The first shot, so he was just walking away slow because I think he was dazed and didn't know he was dead.
Yeah.
The first shot hit because of the angle it was going through, grenaded one lung and completely grenaded the liver. Like when I went to cut him open, it was like shreds and pieces of it. Woo! Wow. Well, so yeah, he was done. If you're standing and you're walking, I'm shooting. Like I'm not tracking you any farther than I have to.
So on the backside of that, you happy with the caliber choice and all that jazz?
Yeah, I was shooting a 300 Win ELDX 200 grain bullet. I just shot factory Hornet ammo because I didn't have enough time to load it.
Yeah.
I'll eventually load that, but I'll probably still use that bullet. It's a great bullet. Did a phenomenal job. Like I said, I couldn't see any blood on him when I was looking, but it was low light. Legal shooting light was about 10 minutes away, but I'm on the back side of a mountain. Not the front side of a mountain. Like once I got over the backside, coming to the front, I could still see a little bit of sun, of like that fading light. I could still see it when I was coming out. It was way darker than the night before, but it was still within, according to the clock of Google. I had 10 minutes to go, and I literally every evening I go out and hunt. I look up what says the sunset is at 30 minutes. That's when you're done. So I just won't risk it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like I said, it was really cool. I liked it. So, hey,
Yeah.
I like guns too. What do you know?
Yeah.
And it's so similar. Like long distance rifle and archery are so incredibly similar. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
A lot of crossover there, very much collating together.
And a lot of guys that do well in one do well in both.
Very much.
We have some locals that are both enthusiasts in both categories and do both at a pretty high level.
Yeah. A lot of crossover in there that it's like if your brain can wrap the concept around of both things, you're going to do really well both.
Yeah. I've come to think of arrows kind of like building your own custom load, really. Like you're building a thing that will potentially fly the best or whatever you want to get out of your arrow setup. But yeah, your arrow setup, that's kind of like a custom load is how I feel. And some bows take one arrow setup better than the other for whatever reason. I mean, it's interesting that way.
Yeah.
And it can be a pretty deep rabbit hole. If you really want to get into that extremities of archery, you can get pretty deep in that rabbit hole.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, speaking of arrows.
Look at you with your clever little segue.
Look at these. Look at these. Look at these. Look at this. Look at that. Josh has already seen these. I haven't. Let me read what I'm seeing really quick.
Sure.
Okay, this is a Victory Archery HLR 300 spine V1 spine aligned. And what it looks like at eyes glance is it looks very similar to the UltraView arrow with the carbon weave. This is 5mm? 204 is 5mm?
Yep, it's a 5mm arrow.
Yep. And this is
HLR,
new, so let's talk about it.
The HLR stands for Hunt Long Range.
Let's talk about it.
Long range arrow.
5mm.
That is a 1.5K weave, so it's actually a finer weave than the 1K that UltraView uses. Which, for those of you that don't know, Victory makes UltraView's arrow for them. For clarification, this is the arrow that I have harassed my buddy Jason Binsick, who works at Victory, for 8 years. It's designed off of RIP XV with a layer weave on the outside. It's pretty much what it is. That arrow at 300 spine is an 8.1 GPI.
And RIP TKO is a 8.8?
RIP TKO is 8.9.
Okay.
So it's 0.8 an inch lighter. So it's roughly 25 grains lighter on an arrow, give or take. On
a 30-inch
somewhere
arrow.
around there, right? Same spine, higher tight weave. Like that's a more expensive weave on that arrow. The tighter the weave, the more costly it is to make.
It feels like it flexes less.
It responds really well. I just did a video on those, which will be up tomorrow, which will be before this video's out.
Like that's quite a bit of pressure right there.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah. Doesn't feel the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did I tested all those arrows, the maximum variance. Mind you, I didn't know I could talk about them yet. Like I got them yesterday, and I was just trying to get them and one other person to send me their arrows that are new this year, which the other ones I can't talk about yet, to play with when I go to Texas and the rest of my hunting this year. Because I was building a new setup for it just to test some of the new products out that I have. And those and the other ones got here the same day, and I didn't know I could discuss this. So I went ahead and had them fletched. I had Daniel fletch them up for me. He does an amazing job, which
did a good job,
ironically,
yeah.
a lot of the arrows that we that people buy off our website to be custom built, we have a custom arrow builder in there. Daniel fletches a lot of them.
Daniel is the customer.
Daniel, he's not the only one, but he does a
Right.
lot of them. He does a
a lot of them,
phenomenal
yeah.
job. I should get his Instagram. Daniel's a really good dude. Been with me for a while. Really reliable, and a lot of the emails that you send, he replies to unless he needs my input. So, shout out to Daniel. He saves me a lot, and I really appreciate him. Anyway, that arrow. So I had him fletched first. So when I had to weigh him, already fletched as far as the variance is concerned, because I weigh for variance. There was 0.7 from the worst to the best on weight. So it's less than a half a grain variance. And I could not find one that wasn't perfectly straight. I've never found that, ever. Like every time I go through and measure 12 brand new arrows, at least one of them's not straight, right? Because that's, it's a manufacturing process. 12 arrows go through, one of them's probably not going to be perfect, snuck through the line somehow or that sort of deal.
And even if a
Those were
full
perfect.
arrow's not perfectly straight, by the time you cut it, square it, like you can
You
probably
can usually
improve upon it.
improve upon it, but
Yeah.
I'm measuring an uncut, unmessed with arrow, no sullying at all going on, and I'm spinning over the graphic too. Like the way getting those to balance on the spinner, I had to go over the graphic. They were perfectly straight. I was amazed. Now it could have just been a fluke, and I got a perfect set because you, like I said, you usually get one that isn't perfect.
Do you know the price?
But it was a taped. Yes, I do. It was a taped sealed box in Victory. Next important thing you should be aware of: it comes with a one-piece collar over 50 grain steel insert.
Right on.
I don't know if I would replace this insert personally. I mean, if you want to get more elongation connection, like a titanium would probably do that, like my 50 grain titanium maybe. But outside of that, I don't think I'd change the insert that's provided with the arrow, so you're not buying them. They are $234.99, which is $20 a dozen more than a Rip TKO
Wow.
currently. And I haven't seen 2025 pricing. I don't know if Rip TKO's got more expensive or not.
Good job,
So-
Victory. That's nice to hear.
Now, that is for an unfletched arrow. That has Iron Will's new 2.5-inch vanes on it. He sent me 2 sets of them to play with. He's supposedly going to make that in a lighter material, so it's not the lightest vane at all. But when he told me he was working on his own vane, like completely from scratch, he used like 7 different guys' materials. He was going to have somebody make it for him, but it was his own shape and design. My envisionment of like the perfect 2.5 or the perfect hunting vane is like a 2.5-inch vane with a steeper shield type cut. Because I used to shoot the Max Hunter 2.2s forever from AAE, but they were noisy. There was like that front fin that comes up, I think grabs a lot of noise and wind drag on it. And they were a little too tall, like just slightly, because you'd find rests where it would hit, because it was like 5/8 of an inch tall. My brain, after the experience I had with those versus stealths versus hybrids versus DCAs and whatnot, that shape I thought would be the best functioning shape, but I never played with one. And Bill eventually releases them and sends me a picture of one. I'm like, that's like, if I could have guessed at what it should look like, it should look like that. Out of there, they work with, I think it's the University of Colorado a lot for their testing. They test all kinds of products down there, which is really cool that he has access to that and it's nearby. We'll definitely do some collaboration stuff with Bill because he's just a really smart dude. But in any event, I'm trying those veins out and I had them thrown on there and it's a good looking vein. It's clean. I think it's the brand, the materials from that he settled on. I'm trying to remember who it is, but it's is it Fusion? I think it's Q2I.
No.
Maybe, I think. I hope I'm not wrong on that. Sorry, Bill, if I said that wrong. But the shape and the dimension, he thinks he can make that in about 7 grains, but it's going to be out of a material that wouldn't be as durable. And he did asked a bunch of people around the country, and durability was more important than weight to the majority. So he made a heavier vein that's more durable instead of a lighter vein that's less durable. I was like, I don't give a crap if it's durable. I want it light. I want to get the weight out of the ass end of the arrow.
Well, I just wanted to circle back to something. So these are $235 a dozen, but they also come with steel inserts.
Correct. So in theory, you shouldn't have to replace them.
And Victory's aluminum inserts, in all fairness, for a regular shooter are dog cheeks.
Or what?
Dog cheeks.
Explain dog cheeks. For
they're not-
the ignoramuses that don't know your slang.
This is my nephew's slang that I think the kids
Oh,
call
dog-
it. Yeah,
oh.
dog cheeks. Not good. They're going to bend. If you shoot them into a lot of foam, they're going to wobble. We don't want no weeble wobble on our tip.
Yeah,
You
and
know what I mean?
honestly, anything that's aluminum, you're going to run into that.
And
There's
they're kind of
places where you can get away with
elongated
it.
too. So like they're just that design where if you shoot them a lot, they're going to bend. Now, if you're going to pick up your arrows September 15th and hunt October 1st, yeah, the durability of them is probably not going to be an issue. But if you're going to be a year-round shooter, they're going to bend. So steel, wow, that's great. That's almost a net no change in the price, considering you're getting an upgraded tip. Now, it's not our business, but we are in the business of talking, speculating. So does that bastardize their relationship a little bit with UltraView?
I doubt it because I don't think they have any, signing stuff. UltraView's trying to operate on the premise that we have our own proprietary size, our own componentry, our own
package. Comes shipped to your door.
Nice package.
Nice package.
Nice package. Our own veins, like everything soup to nuts, is all their own thing. And what UltraView is selling, mind you, and I'm sure they'll go to a shaft version at some point. But what they're selling is a completely if you custom built it yourself. That's what they're trying to base it off of.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard for people to wrap their head around the price, but if you actually sat down and priced out, okay, so if I custom built this, I put a wrap on it, I put these expensive vanes on it, which those vanes are not cheap. I put a good aftermarket component because what came on it wouldn't be what would standard come on something, right? And points and all that. I mean, it's going to add up to similar to that price.
How is the knock on those? On their UltraViews?
It's an IP.
But doesn't it have a thing?
It's got a collar.
Yeah.
Like a bushing.
A bushing, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is an
So they have a
upgrade
bushing-
knock. Yeah.
They have a bushing to take a 4.5 mil to a 4 mil, which is what would fit in all your small arrows. Mm-hmm. So it still uses a standardized knock. The negative of that is when you try to find lighted knocks, there's not as many good choices. And when you put a lighted knock that small into a bushing, it doesn't like to turn. And you will probably break 1 out of every 6 that you try to install.
Yeah.
Because I did.
Is Matthew's launch going to be November 19th?
That's the tentative date I've been told.
So maybe we consider pushing that Monday to that Tuesday, because I think that's what... I think Monday's the 18th, I think maybe if we want to get a pod out on that launch day, it could be interesting.
We could. I'm supposed to receive that product only a few days early. So I don't know if...
Maybe we'll do a special pod.
We could. I mean, we could still record it that week and whatnot. Who knows?
Yeah.
Are we going to take off Christmas, New Year's like we did last year?
Or I think so.
Okay, cool.
I think that's just the best practice.
All right, well, if we're going to do that, then let's do it as a bonus.
Yeah, shut her down.
Yeah.
It's like, every great mill has to be shut down every once in a while.
Well, if we don't have to do the last 2 weeks of December and we're in November at that point, we're near the end of November, let's give them an extra one.
So on our last podcast with Dan, we talked and said that Trump was going to be doing the Rogan podcast.
Yep. Nostradamus over here calls it.
Now, no, I actually heard him say that. But
okay.
Now at this point, the election's over. Hopefully it went well. But
hopefully there's not riots in the streets or anything.
Have you seen the views on the podcast with Rogan?
You know what I found incredibly interesting on that? I only looked at it after the first day.
Yeah.
It had 20 million views on YouTube after the first day, which, mind you, that thing's broadcast in a lot more places than YouTube. But it had 20 million views on YouTube, and then it got all of a sudden really hard to find.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Did you go back and look?
It was doing 1 million views an hour. So about a day later, it was 24 million views. Right now, it's about 40 million views. But if you did type in the search bar, if you typed in Joe Rogan, Trump wouldn't populate, right away. So I don't know. I don't love it, but it's still doing the views. Like at this point, at last I looked, is at 40 million. So regardless of if it's populating or not, and it didn't show up on trending, which is crazy because...
Well, what's interesting about that...
Yeah.
So having him go on what he went on, right? I'm going to see if we can find it real quick and just see what it...
yeah, just start typing in the letters and see when it populates.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Trump, it's populating now, second thing.
Have you searched it before? Though?
I have, though.
Yeah.
And it says 40 million views.
Yeah, so 40 million views, massive...
That's the most I've seen a Joe Rogan podcast go for.
It's the most I've seen a podcast go for.
Yeah. So the point I got of that when I saw that, I went, if they're, let's say YouTube's curating it to try to benefit Democrats just for fun.
Yeah. Just for fun.
Not saying that's real. I think that's going to hurt them way more. It's going to help them because the average person, Like both of my daughters don't want to vote
Yeah.
because they don't want to vote for Trump, but they don't want to vote for Kamala either. And my youngest daughter today said, I think I'm going to listen to that podcast. And she's never listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, right? And that's your average undecided or liberal person, right? They go to look for it and can't find it or have a hard time finding it. The light's going to go on in their head that, oh, you're trying to hide this shit from me too. And the crazy little right-wing people that were telling you they're curating stuff, you just proved it to the public. Like the average person who just simply believed you, that didn't think it was fake or phony.
Yeah.
You're like, so not only is it going to crush whatever views that it needs to crush, like, I mean, it's at 40 million. It still said 40 in 4 days, right? Not only did it crush better than anything's ever crushed in the history of crushing, you're also going to show a whole bunch of people that might not have voted that way that you've been hiding shit from them because you're trying to hide that. It took off like a rocket so fast, you went, whoa, we got to slow this down. How is it not trending? And how has it got 40 million views in 4 days and you have a hard time finding it?
Yeah.
Like, that's freaking nuts.
Pretty incredible. I'm assuming you got to listen to it?
Oh, yeah.
What was your, what was your reaction to it on the, what was your
Trump's
reaction?
got ADHD.
Yeah.
100%. Like, his brain jumps around so much. Like, which it's something, I've never been diagnosed, but I fully believe I have that.
He calls that the weave when he's storytelling.
Yeah.
But a lot of good storytellers weave. So
yeah, but it's like so off topic. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
At times. But I mean, the guy went on a 3-hour conversation, never really had like a moment, right? Where he really just didn't know what to say.
No,
or
he's
was
sharp,
lost.
yeah.
He was sharp as a tack, which they tried to say he's too old. And
he was so tactful in asking for Rogan's endorsement.
yeah,
He
right?
was so tactful. Like,
yeah.
I don't think any
need to vote for
writer
me.
anywhere could have scripted a better way.
You need to vote for me, Joe.
He says, you're not a Kamala person.
You're not a Kamala person.
And he said like Bill Ackman. He said Bill Ackman. He's like, Bill Ackman endorsed me. And he's like, you're not a Kamala person.
Trump's a comedian. Like, he's a full-on comedian. It's hilarious. Like, he's got really good comedic timing. He just does. And, sometimes comedians offend people.
Yeah.
They do. And then some people will choose to take the one thing they said that offended some people and try to exploit it like it's exactly what they think and it's what they're focused on kind of crap, instead of you just say random crap off the cuff to try to make people laugh.
Well, he's also born and raised in New York, and that's there's some special kind of people that are just raised in that ecosystem.
Right.
Like, it would be cool for a lot of them to spend a week on a Midwest farm or a couple of weeks. Like, it's just two different worlds, but that's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's different in the South, different in the West, different in the Southwest. Yes. Everyone has their own ecosystem, but yeah, you just have to take that into consideration. Like, Trump's ecosystem was New York. Yeah. And it was interesting to hear him talk about getting deals done and how much of how many things have to happen to get a big building done, which I've talked to people about larger real estate transactions, never anything that big, but you don't realize like all the things you have, all the hoops you have to jump through to be able to construct a project like that. So to me, that's some of his most valuable experience to be like a great president, is like just the knowledge of how to navigate because that's like some political boundaries that you have to navigate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and have relationships with people.
Yeah, that's
and working relationships that are functional.
Yeah, that's a very valuable.
You can't burn
skill.
Bridges and get that shit done.
Yeah, it's a very valuable skill to have, especially when it comes to running a country.
Yeah, and it was funny how much he talked about tariffs.
It's tariff.
If we could say, what Trump, how are you going to what's your 30-second description of how you're going to help, this next presidency? He'd be like, tariffs.
He would say two things.
Yeah.
He'd say tariffs and drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
Which, when you've got the world's leading manufacturer of electric cars saying we need to drill oil, you need to drill oil. No. Like, that's literally Elon going, we need fuel production, not just electric cars.
Well, and at this point, electric cars aren't environmentally sustainable either.
Not at all. Not
because
even remotely close.
Natural resources it takes to make an electric car.
Did you hear the scuttlebutt on that? The brake dust that comes off of an electric car creates more pollution than a combustion engine because they're so much heavier.
I haven't heard that. No.
Yeah, they're so much heavier. They go through brakes a ton more and require a lot more stopping power because they weigh more. And the really, guys,
yeah,
The stuff that comes off the brakes, it gets into the air, and it's worse than the combustion out of your engine.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for a second.
Well, it was just something I've heard a couple times now. I'm like that, you don't even think about that, but if you have a heavier vehicle, you're gonna burn more rubber as a result of it. Period. And you've got to have a bigger brake to stop it. And as your brakes start to wear and erode, it comes off as brake dust. You'll see it on your rotors, and supposedly that goes up into the air and creates more toxic stuff. So we got a dog issue. This is hilarious. Anyway, these arrows, I've been asking for these forever. I couldn't be more excited about them. These are going to be made in 3 different straightness grades. You're going to be able to get a 6,000 straightness, a 3,000 straightness, and a 1,000 straightness. And I haven't gotten the published pricing on anything but the Elites. The Elites are $234.99. But if Victory is anything like they are in the past, you should be like $214 for a 3,000s and $194 for a 6,000s. Mm-hmm. And these are going to be shipping the first part of the year, so I'm told. So we are going to have these available for purchase on the site ahead of time for people that really want to jump on these. But this year for me, for arrows, is super exciting because there's a couple products coming out that are right up what I've wanted for a long time that they haven't made. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be super exciting for me because it points people into the direction of a lighter arrow, and then get your head wrapped around, well, if you want it to weigh more, which is the reality of what you should be doing, use a stiffer spine and put more weight in the front.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say was, a lot of people are going to hear this and think, oh, this is going to put me in the light arrow camp if I use it.
Nope.
And that's not true. It just gives you more flexibility on where you want the weight.
Yeah, so your stock setup's going to be like 150 grains in the front on a 300 spine. And if you want to go heavier, then why don't you put 200 grains in the front and a 250 spine?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And totally get that. I don't have the GPI on the 250s yet because they aren't done. The 300s are done, the 400s are done, the 500s are done.
I wonder if they'll make it in a 200 spine.
Maybe if there's enough demand. I doubt there will be, though.
It gets interesting.
They added almost every arrow in 200 spine, and they haven't hardly sold it.
Yeah. But if your person really wanted to push that weight, yeah, you could jump into that 200 spine and put a lot of weight in the front. A lot of weight.
Well, 200 in the front's a lot, period.
Yeah.
And most people should be able to shoot a 250 with 200 in the front without too much of an issue.
Now, we don't know. I mean, you know a little of what's to come, but we don't know what's to come before the end of the year as far as arrow launches go. Mm-hmm. But this is great, and this is going to be in a lot of quivers next year. That's my prediction.
We will sell a ton of those arrows. I don't know how we won't.
And I've got good faith in Victory as an arrow manufacturer now. I've had who knows how many dozens of RIP TKOs. I just saw my arrow bucket the other day of old extinct arrows that I've been shooting. And yeah, they're good, solid arrow manufacturer. They do a good job.
Is that enough to tickle your fancy to make you want to change from what you've shot?
Oh yeah. This is the first arrow that's like, this would be right at the front of the category as long as they fly, and I'm sure they will.
It's the tightest weave they've ever offered on an arrow too. So I mean, and that's what UltraView is claiming is the biggest claim to their product is that it recovers faster and because it recovers faster, it corrects mistakes faster.
Yeah.
And they're claiming that's because of the weave. Mm-hmm. Well, that's an even tighter weave. Shouldn't that recover faster than the other one?
And
in theory?
I think I'm just cresting into the arena of being able to shoot, say, a couple different arrow models and being consistent enough to recognize, hey, the one arrow does fly a little better.
Sure.
Because it takes like you got to be shooting pretty good to get to that point.
Right.
For your average person that just picks up a bow, they may not see tremendous difference in arrow to arrow to arrow, but you give a guy like Bodie 6 different arrows and he builds them up, he's going to see some differences, and that stuff matters. It's like that, going back to that custom load thing, like great potential. Well,
you're seeing more and more arrows in weave too.
Yeah.
Where for early on there was 1 or 2. You've got Black Eagle came out with that focus arrow that's got some weave on it. It's not the whole arrow woven, but it's woven in a certain spot. Mm-hmm. UltraView, Victory, Gold Tip doesn't do a weave yet that I've seen. Carbon Express was doing a weave a long time ago, but it was all imported from, I don't want to say China, and it kind of fell off the map of popularity. Yeah. Well, there's a couple other weave ones out there from small companies.
I'm curious, just that face value, how it'll affect the durability of the arrow.
Well, weave's supposed to make an arrow much more durable, which is the original premise of why they go to a weave. It's structurally stronger, which is probably why when you're flexing it, it feels stiffer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably your weave.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, because, to a point, if the materials got too stiff, it could become brittle also, right?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. Sounds like we might have a TV to do some arrow testing on.
A T-
A
oh,
A
you're
TV
gonna
that-
throw Joel under the bus already?
No, I wasn't gonna say. I was gonna name names.
Oh, I'll call him out. He shot my TV.
And now that TV has potential to, take a few more arrows to see, maybe a little durability testing kind of
Just
thing.
put something under it so you catch all the pieces that come flying off
Yeah.
of it.
No,
and you don't just leave 'em.
maybe take it out of there before the.
Oh yeah, no. I meant like if you take it out to the field or something, throw a tarp
right,
under
yeah.
it or something, so we
Yes.
don't just have a bunch of random pieces laying in the
Yeah, a
field.
bunch of shards of TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a good idea for how to do a little impact testing with a TV, I'm curious because I thought about it and I'm like, how could we make that cool? I mean, obviously we could shoot an arrow into it and that's fun, but maybe there's a little more to it than that.
Sure.
I don't know.
Always ideas.
Yeah.
Carnage is fun.
Carnage is fun. Yeah.
God, these things are so straight.
Yeah.
Just super straight.
It's exciting. It's, speaking of Joel, he was asking me about arrows the other day and speculating on what Easton might come out with because there's been people on social media, Dan himself posting experimental arrows.
Mm-hmm.
And he was asking, what do you think they are? And I talked about my prediction and stuff. And I told him, it's not, arrow innovation isn't too interesting to me at this point, unless there's like a new material or they're going to do something that we haven't seen in the past. And that's exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had this from Joel yesterday because I didn't know I could talk about it.
So,
yeah.
He's going to be very excited.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Yeah. No longer top secret. So, but yeah, pretty sweet. And I want to say Easton's supposed to have a couple of new arrows. I thought it was more than one, which I expected a lot of arrow movement this year. I haven't heard from Gold Tip yet to see what they're doing. But I was expecting a lot of arrow movement because almost nobody came out with a new arrow. Traditionally, every year or every other year, each arrow manufacturer will launch a new product into their line, and nobody did that. I mean, they did, but they didn't. It was more like a resurface or rebranding kind of deal last year.
Well,
and it's good to see some actual new products that are not the same thing as something they made prior or taking a new SKU.
you still have an opportunity potentially for Washington elk, right?
Yeah. In fact,
Does that make you a little pickier or less, or it's the same?
Not at all. But where I hunt, it's bull only. So I have to shoot a male, and that's the hard part in late season. But there's a rifle season, I think, just got done in Washington, or it's finishing up right now. And I hadn't seen much for elk, and in the past week and a half, I'm up to 4 or 5 different elk that I've seen now.
Yeah.
So there's no rifle hunting on my property. Everything are getting pushed onto my property, and as long as I can be diligent about providing them a safe space and keeping it quiet, they may just not leave.
Well, at this stage in the season, I think there's largely 2 camps of people with archery. The first camp, and I think most of our listeners are probably in this one, where they're potentially going to be sitting in tree stands.
Yeah.
Cold weather, whitetail hunting. I think that's largely the first camp. The second camp is some people are done with archery seasons. So let's give some considerations for each group. If you're getting ready to sit for whitetail, what are some best practices?
How to do it?
Yeah, just to keep the eye on the ball, make sure your gear's tight, those kind of things. I'm thinking about the first thing I think about is making sure your poundage is dialed in so you can draw it in any weather.
I would obviously adjust it to where it's comfortable to you if you can't pull it. I would leave your bow like on a cold morning outside, or leave it out all night, and then get up early in the morning, like right as the sun's coming up, and go shoot it. And say, hey, am I hitting in the same spot when my bow's ice cold? Because if you sit there in a tree for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, it's going to sit there and get cold. So just leave it outside overnight if you can in a safe place, or leave it in an unheated garage or something. I mean, even when you have an unheated garage, it's still not as cold as outside typically.
Yeah.
So if you could, hang it up on your back porch or something like that, if you have that sort of option, get your bow really fucking cold and then shoot it and see if you hit in the same spot. Because frequently you won't. If
you're in the, you have the person who hunts in the cabana in the sky, like Josh Jones with a heater.
Cabana. I don't use a heater. Okay. I've yet to. I have heaters. I've yet to turn one on because it just hasn't. I can hunt in my my heater bodysuit in a
Oh, you
in a
got the heater
blind
bodysuit, yeah.
to like 0.
Yeah.
And not add any heat. And I'm not even wearing that
In your
much.
cabana in the sky.
Like,
And then you
you're
have the
gonna do it,
person,
do it right, son.
the person who's out in the tree stand shaking their little weenuses off. If you're a tree stand hunter and you can do the heater bodysuit, those things are money. And I know enough people that that's a great product. Or if you can't, layer up and get yourself one of those little things you see quarterbacks use where you can put your hands in,
Yeah.
a hand muff.
Yeah.
Is that what those are called?
yeah.
Those are really nice because you can keep your hands relatively free of, material.
Well, and it is amazing how convenient hand warmers are.
Yeah.
The little disposable ones. But don't get the little ones. Those don't work for crap.
Hmm.
You got to get the bigger ones. They last a long time. Like
Yeah.
when I went on that hunt with my Matthews rep, Evan. Shout out to Evan Foose. They had like a supply of them. You could grab whatever you wanted. And if you ever grabbed the little ones, they were cold in like an hour. You grab the big ones, you could throw them back at the house when we were done and pick them up the next morning, and they were still putting out heat.
Wow.
So not the ones that are like giant, like for your back, but there's like a smaller hand one and a bigger hand one. You want the bigger one. Don't waste your money on the smaller ones. There's a night and day difference. Throw it in your pocket, throw it in a hand muff, something like that, and it's amazing. That thing will go the whole time you're sitting. And they're cheap. They're throwaway disposable. It's worth it.
Now, if you're in the other camp, careful with that. I think that noise might come through.
You don't like my tap, tap, taparoo?
Nobody will like a tapping that microphone.
All right, I'll get it out of my hand because I fidget.
Here.
I got it.
If you're in the other camp of persons and your archery season's over, or maybe you're just really good at hunting and you punched your tags, let's talk about some considerations.
If you're done with hunting and you punch your tags,
Yeah.
I would deep clean your bow because it's probably got dirt and crap all over it. I would really take a good look at your strings. Make sure you don't have any separated servings. Make sure you don't have any busted strands. Blow off your bow with like an air compressor really good. Just get all the dust and stuff out of there. And if you're going to put it away for the winter, I would probably wax it, which I don't normally wax strings, but if I'm going to store it for a while, I would wax it. So it's not sitting there dry with load on it. You might want to check your tune real quick. Like if you're the kind of guy who puts his bow away and pulls it back out in August for a couple of weeks and goes hunting, check your tune before you put it away. Run it through paper if you have access to it. If you don't have access to a paper tuner, buy one. They're cheap. I think we sell the papertuner.com guys on our website, but there's other ones out there. Or make one. They're not complicated. They're
You just redneck some paper together.
It's a very useful tool, and just make sure your bow's still tuned before you put it away. So when you do pull it out with, oh God, it's 2 weeks to hunting season, I need to shoot my bow. It's not jacked up. You should be able to put it away when it's good and then come back to it when it's good.
Yeah, I most of that stuff I actually hadn't heard. I think that's very interesting. Well, my thought was consider. Well, I would kind of do an end of year SWOT analysis. What did you like about your setup? What did you dislike? Is it worth changing? Maybe you want to keep that. Maybe you want to check out some of this new stuff coming out. Or you have an area or a group of friends where you can pound some paper. And I think that's a very fun way to dial in the off season.
Yeah.
You can kind of break down your fundamentals. You could say, hey, I'm starting from scratch. I'm gonna build some good habits this off season. And you have a couple months to really do whatever you want to dial it in.
For sure.
Whether that's new equipment, different grip styles, maybe different arm positions, whatever you can do to break it down and build it up. And I've had fun with target archery, particularly in the off season. I probably would have a hard time doing it as much if there wasn't a good group of people for me to do it with.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
It is very much a community-driven thing.
Yeah. So if you have a group of cohorts, you could organize to do it, or if you're disciplined enough to just do it in the basement, or blank bail in the basement or your garage, that's great too. But yeah, it's fun to be able to get together with the boys and send a few, talk some trash.
Gotcha.
Negotiate how many handicap points I get.
Sure. Gotcha. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to hunt. You have one remaining hunt. Or what are you bringing to...
So I still have... Well, I can't talk about what I'm bringing to Texas.
Okay.
Because it doesn't exist yet.
It doesn't exist yet.
It won't exist till in November.
Okay.
So I can't talk about what bow that is. It's just a new bow.
Yeah.
I can say it's from Bowtech.
Oh, interesting.
I Just got done testing it, and I'm gonna put some stuff on it and hunt with it.
Right on.
I'm bringing those arrows and another set of arrows that I can't talk about. And then I have that hunt in Texas.
And you're going to have opportunities to shoot through whitetail?
Yeah. Yeah. And I could have sworn we actually have like doe management too, where you can shoot like 3 or 4 deer or something like that. So I'm going to pick a couple different broadheads, a couple different arrows, play with them a little bit, see what they do. I have a hunt in December. I don't have dates on it yet in Mexico. I still have my late archery in Washington, where I have not filled a tag in Washington at all. It's getting pretty cold. I'm pretty sure I'm done bear hunting at this point. I still see a couple here and again, but they're going to be denned up here real quick if it stays this cold, especially. I still have a deer tag and an elk tag. I kind of don't expect to fill my deer tag in Washington. I'm not going to put a whole lot of time into it.
Yeah.
I'm going to more focus on elk because my property just doesn't yield big whitetails yet. It might at some point, but it does not right now. And I would rather let them live and let them get older and bigger than just fill a tag, especially because I have an elk in the freezer, so I'm not as worried about red meat. I got an antelope's worth of meat. I'm anticipating I'll have a couple other deer. Anyway, I still have deer in Idaho. I may go back down to Pappy's and hunt mule deer down there in the late. I might shoot one up here because I have a statewide tag. I can do that now. And I had bear tags in Idaho, but I'm assuming those are done too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a deer tag in Idaho still, and a elk tag and a deer tag in Washington that have potential to be filled. My buddy Nick was putting out feeler stuff in Washington, not on our property, to try to find some deer. And if he comes through with that, I might go shoot a deer. But yeah. And then I'm supposed to go back to Texas in January again.
Yeah.
So I still got a decent amount of hunting to do. I'm probably halfway done with my hunting, I would say.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, we got a lot of top secret gear we can talk about in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's just new product,
So subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Hear it here first, folks.
And
hopefully you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while you're subscribing, leave us a review. It helps a lot. We appreciate that.
And the fire's out.
Boom.
Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you back.
Yeah.
Boom. Boom.